Welcome to Changing Our Reality. In this episode, I'm going to go back to my book that I first wrote, and it was around 2013, called Changing My Reality, telling my story of what got me here with all my challenges in life and how I've struggled through them and how I've rode this roller coaster of life. Science has discovered the first 7 years of our life, we are just like recorders. We're just taking in all the information that we can, whether it's good or bad. We soak it all in. Now, my first years of life, I was just happy. I used to call myself a monkey. I used to be able to hide. I used to climb things. When we were playing hide and seek, I would go in the chute and I would climb up the wall. They used to have railings in the malls. I was the one that stuck their head in and got my head stuck and had to get someone out, grease my ears up and get my head out. I was the one that used to hide from my mom in the racks, the clothing racks, and they would never find me. She would have the salespeople, and now they would have a complete lockdown. But now they had the people searching for me, and my mom saying, "Richard Freeman, you come out here," and couldn't find me. But now they don't build those racks where you can hide in the middle of them, and they're much safer. And in the malls, they have glass instead of the railings. So I take credit for that. Now, in my 7th year, now this was a month after my birthday at 7 years old. I just turned 7. And I was so happy. We were running around. There were 3 of us. It was a Memorial Day party at my next door neighbor's house. We were running around, and we ran around. 2 of us ran around to the front of the back of the house, and we climbed up on this little log cabin playhouse. And I was sitting there right behind the one boy, hiding my head behind his head. And all of a sudden, I guess his head moved, and I caught a 12-foot bamboo pole right in my left eye. Now, back in those days, they used to roll carpets up in 12-foot bamboo poles. And that was left behind, and that's what the other 7-year-old, the third one, threw at me. And I caught it. They rushed me to the hospital. I can't believe my mom. I was sitting in her lap. Ask her on the way up to the hospital, "Is my eye still there? Is my eye still there?" And she just held me. And in the hospital, they couldn't handle my eye. It was a broken stick in my eye. So they sent me to a children's hospital. It was an eye and ear hospital in Pittsburgh. And back then, they didn't really have ambulances, so they made a big thing. I remember someone saying, they might take you in an ambulance, making a big deal out of it. But no, they decided to just sit me in there with his eye sticking out of my eye. And the neighbor drove me down, and my dad was there and to the hospital. Nowadays, if someone lost their eye, they would go right to emergency care. They would have occupational therapy, physical therapy. They would learn about what it was like to only live with one eye. Back in 1971, it was just more like, just deal with it, do the best you can. And I did. I could not catch a football or play baseball. But that was out. I did not like someone throwing their keys at me, trying to, my aim was a little off. But I found gymnastics, and gymnastics helped me because it was a sport I could do on my own, and I could practice it over and over until I got a move right. And I became good at it. And later on, I became a teacher. Once the boys team I started to teach the little girls and the girls team. And that was my hiding place, because I didn't realize how uncomfortable I felt with living with this one eye. I didn't fit in with the other crowd at school. This was a place I could just feel comfortable. Now after gymnastics, after I got out of high school, West Virginia University was the place I was going to go. And even though I did terrible in school, I just could not concentrate. I was not good at school. So I went to gymnastics. Also forget to say, now, right as I got my driver's license, I was 15 years old. I remember there was a Bruce Springsteen concert down in Pittsburgh. One of the friends drove down there and we were all there. And at the last concert, it was an awesome concert, Bruce Springsteen. It was 4.5 hours long. It just Bruce Springsteen, no pre-band. And towards the end, we worked our way down onto the floor. So we were standing down there on the floor. And right at the end, he started to play Baby, We Were Born to Run. And that's when it hit me. My stomach, I had to run and find a bathroom. And it was the grossest bathroom in the world. Figure at the end of a concert, a men's bathroom. Oh, it was disgusting. But I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I went to the bathroom and I got home. I was sick. I couldn't figure out what to do. My mom took me to the doctor and I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And nobody at that time in the late 70s really ever heard of Crohn's disease. It was a new disease and there were no medications. All they had for me was steroids, prednisone and a sulfa. So I went off to college on handfuls of steroids every day. And that did keep my Crohn's under control, but it didn't help me everyday life of studying and getting through school. And I did not get through school. So when I got home, trying to figure out what we were going to do, my brother graduated college at Penn State. He was a Dean's List graduate at Penn State. And he was going to come home and open up a new business. Now, I did get, when I lost my eye, I got a lawsuit. I got $20,000 and that helped me through college. That paid for rent. There were a couple of us that were rented a place and they didn't have any money for rent. So I paid the rent for that month. We had a lot of fun and I spent 2 years at West Virginia before coming home. In 1985, we came up with the idea to open up the first big video store in Pittsburgh. This was before Blockbuster Video. And the best decision we made was, do we get VHS or Beta? Do we put a lot of money into getting this Betamax, or do we put all our money into just getting VHS tapes and getting much more inventory? And we decided to get just VHS. And just like not even a year later, Betamax went out. So we were doing very well in the video store. It was a lot of fun. This was a fun business. I met my first girlfriend, who was actually an employee. Wouldn't work nowadays, but I think I was just 21 years old. And we had a great relationship. She was the love of my life. And that ended not far after, several years later. And I don't even want to get into that. That's a long story. So, should I tell the story? Nah. Okay, nah. We're not going to tell the story. After the video store, after Cassandra, here we go. After dating Cassandra, we broke up. My heart was broken, and I got a golden retriever dog, Sunny Day. And she was my love. She was a great replacement for Cassandra. She was perfect. She was a lot of fun. And we moved out to Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And since I was teaching gymnastics already to kids, I became an instructor for the Vail, Colorado ski school for kids, 3 to 6 year olds. That was a wonderful experience living out in Colorado. But one thing I forgot was after Cassandra, after we broke up, I had my first surgery. This was 1989. They took out my terminal ileum. They removed my terminal ileum where your small intestine meets your large intestine. And there's a whole something called an ileocecal valve. They removed all that. And that was the start of it. So then we went out to Colorado after Cassandra. And me and Sunny Day, we had an amazing, amazing trip out there. But my stomach started to get bad again. I thought once I had surgery, I was healed. I was going to be better. I started to eat all the food. I didn't think about anything with my stomach. But all of a sudden, I ended up in the hospital again in Colorado. It was just a little local hospital where they kept me for a couple of days, send me home. I put the dog down in the kennel. They brought that back up. That happened again and again until I finally went to Denver hospital and I had my surgery, my second surgery. And this was just in 2 years. After that, we went back to Pittsburgh. I was living in this place, Pennsbury Village. I owned a condo there. That was from when I was renting videos. From the video store, I bought a condo. And so we were living there again. And it was just a year after I moved back to Pennsbury Village to Pittsburgh with Sunny Day. And then it was about a year later, my cousin got married. And we went down to my cousin's wedding in Pensacola, Florida. And there was another girl there. Not a girl, a woman. And she caught my eye. And I couldn't take my eyes off her. And we fell in love. We got married. And we had a great time. And my stomach started to get sick again. And the first thing, I ended up 6 weeks in the hospital before we got married. And she would come down, Terry would come down to the hospital and visit me every day. And it was amazing. I did have a big, large private room that had a couch. So it was nice. And they were an amazing thing. They were still smoking cigarettes in the hospital back in those days. I would walk the hallways and they were smoking away. It was a private floor and there were people from different countries. I think they would come in to get transplants at Pittsburgh Hospital. And this was I think they were from Egypt. And they had these really smelly cigarettes and they were smoking them in the hospital and they would have their door open. So I walked by the door and I closed the door just because I couldn't handle the smell. And I was sick. I was doing bad. But all of a sudden, someone opens the door. He comes running at me, yelling at me some other language I can't understand. I'm sitting there with an IV pole in my hand. I'm yelling at him. A nurse is getting in between us. But that's how bad it was in the hospital in those days, and the cigarette smoking. And that was a whole different experience. This was my second and third surgery. And I think I had 4 surgeries. Oh boy, I had a lot of surgeries. But it was after my third surgery that Terry couldn't handle it anymore. And I can't say I blame her. I was nothing but a sick husband, even though we managed to have a daughter, Lily Freeman. She's my little baby. And I took care of her. And I spent maybe a little too much attention on Lily than I did on Terry. So she found someone else. And I have to say, I deserve it. But I had Lily, and that was the most important thing to me. And we spend our time. We would go to the zoo. We would go to the museum. We would go to the parks all the time. That was our fun things to do. And as Lily grew up, she started to go to school and get older. And things just kept getting better and better. Even though my stomach was hanging in there, they came out with this medicine called Humira. I started to change my reality. This was my third or fourth surgery. I knew I needed something different. I was in the hospital again on Memorial Day. I was in the hospital and I did not like this doctor. He was a different doctor. My old doctor retired, and this doctor, he had his resident doctors that would come in. I was just like their patient that would sit there, and he would talk to his residents more than he would talk to me. And it just wasn't going right. And they were going to do a test. It was 4th of July weekend, and I was going to stay an extra day in the hospital. So I checked myself out, AMA, against medical advice. I went home. I knew I needed something different. So I found a place. It was called the Chopra Center for Wellbeing. The internet wasn't much, but I found the website chopra.com, and they had all these different courses I could take. And I could have an appointment with one of the co-founders, David Simon, Dr. David Simon, who was also a neurologist, and Deepak Chopra, who was going to be teaching their class. I went out and took this class. It was called The Soul of Healing. It was based on their weekly class called Perfect Health. So Deepak Chopra was teaching and David Simon was teaching it. And I went out to see what it was going to be like. And I had no idea what mind, body, meditation, anything was going to be like. And I got to the Chopra Center. I got there a little early for the class. And I got up to the door and I yanked on these 2 big wooden doors, and they were locked. And I was really nervous, and I was almost like, maybe this was at La Costa Resort, a very nice resort. I was like, maybe I should just go hang out at the resort, stay at the pool, stay at the hot tub, and skip this class. Right as I turned around and started to walk away, this other young woman, she was walking up to the course, and I was telling the doors are locked, and she said, yes, she just nodded, and she told me this story. All of a sudden, she just started talking this thick Latin accent. And she told me how she was here to talk to Deepak Chopra and tell him this story that happened to her. And she went on and telling me this amazing story, how she had this is how long ago, and she had this case of Deepak Chopra cassette tapes that she would listen to all the time. And one of her friends wanted to borrow this case of tapes. And she was taking this over to her friend's house. And on her way over to her friend's house, she got kidnapped in the jungle. And as she got taken in the jungle, she was held for ransom. And one day, one of the kidnappers listened to the Deepak Chopra tapes, expecting to hear some kind of music, listening to Deepak Chopra talk. And he just threw the tapes back at her. And they did allow her 15 minutes a day to walk in a circle and listen to those tapes. And she said she would put the headphones on and she would listen to the tapes, just saying, everything is possible. How everything is possible, pure potential. And that's when her story ended. I guess since she was there, she was released and all of that stuff, but she was there and the doors opened, the Chopra Center, and she went in. She was taken back in the hallway to talk to Deepak, and I was taken to the front door from the entryway, and I checked in and taken back to this room called the Dharma Room, where I met all these other groups of people and started to gather in for our class that was called the Soul of Healing, Perfect Health. Now, Deepak, he came in for this class, and he said, let's try to look at perfect health in this new perspective. Let's say perfect health has 4 equal parts. 1/4 of it is your physical health. 1/4 of it is your mental health. 1/4 of it is your emotional well-being. And 1/4 of it is your spiritual health. A group of us were talking later on, and we mentioned, if we can improve our mental health, our emotional health, and our spiritual health, we could be almost 75% of the way to perfect health. And we kind of laughed at it, but I have learned over the years, when my physical health gets at its lowest point, if I do what I can to improve my emotional health, my mental health, and my spiritual health in any way I can, I will improve my physical health in certain ways, the best I can. And that's the only thing I can say. The best I can, my physical health will improve. But I'll learn to make new perspectives, start to laugh at the way things are.